a battalion of former oil riggers, miners, and mercs, people used to harsh terrain, high pressure, and no room for error. They tunneled from 3 miles out under the permafrost, moving through ice and stone with cold precision. It took 15 days. They ate snow, slept in silence, buried their dead where they fell, and then, on day 16, they emerged under the processor and lit the whole core with improvised nuclear charges. When it blew, the shockwave shattered alien towers all the way to Anchorage. 1 down, 17 more sites to go. By then, I'd become more than just a tech. I was part of the Strategic War Council, me, Halford II, and 2 survivors from the Warden's original team. We didn't debate ethics anymore. We debated damage potential. Everything we planned was designed to inflict maximum psychological and strategic chaos. But not everything went right. In Shanghai, our embedded cell was captured mid-op. The aliens didn't just kill them. They broadcasted the execution to every human frequency they could. Made a spectacle of it. Gory, slow, methodical. I watched it. Every second. Couldn't look away. We had to respond. So we did. We found one of their high priests, or whatever they called their leadership caste, snatched him right out of a temple bunker in the Swiss Alps, took 5 drones, 2 ex-spies, and a neural override system we'd barely tested. But we got him. And we did the same thing. Live broadcast, no edits, no mercy. He begged in whatever sound passed for begging in his language. We didn't stop. From that point on, the war changed again. Their superiority complex shattered. They stopped underestimating us, started fearing us. But that fear came with escalation. They unleashed something we hadn't seen before. They called it the Binder. It wasn't a ship, it wasn't a weapon, it was a being. 10 stories tall. No face, just a mass of muscle and machine, pulsing with bioelectric venom. It moved through Poland like a storm, absorbing bullets, shrugging off missiles. Entire cities went silent when it passed through. Conventional tactics didn't work. Even our sabotage networks couldn't stop it. We needed something worse, something human. So we made a deal with monsters. Deep under Nevada there was a lab. Off books, forgotten by governments long dead. Inside it, unfinished tech, part biological, part AI, left behind by the Defense Genome Initiative. Stuff they shelved because it scared them. We unshelved it. We didn't even know if it would work. But when the Binder approached the outskirts of Prague, we activated it. We called it Project Shepherd. And it was the first time in this war that the aliens ran. Not retreated. Ran. I watched the Binder scream as something tore through it from within, its tendrils flailing, body convulsing before it collapsed in a heap of bone and alien alloy. It wasn't over. But we'd made our point. This wasn't just resistance anymore. This was retribution. They say the end of a war is when the last shot is fired. But this war wasn't ending with silence. It was ending with a roar. After the fall of the Binder, their command structure fractured. We intercepted transmissions, panicked, disjointed, desperate. Entire fleets went dark. Some even fled. The invincible armada that once marched across our skies was now limping. That's when we made our final move. The location was classified even among us, only code-named God's Mouth. Buried deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, it was where the alien empire's real control relay hid. Not just a base, a control nexus for the entire network of their war machines, terraformers, surveillance webs. Destroy it, and they'd lose their entire foothold on Earth. It was suicide, so we didn't send soldiers. We sent the broken, men with nothing left, exiled commanders, failed operatives, dying warlords, those with diseases that couldn't be cured. They weren't heroes. They were ghosts, walking into hell with nothing to lose. Among them was Darren, the same man who once told me we were losing our humanity. He volunteered the moment the mission was confirmed. Didn't even ask what it involved. I tried to stop him. told him we needed leaders, not martyrs. He just smiled. "I'm not dying for Earth," he said. "I'm dying so they remember we never bowed." The insertion was brutal. No stealth, just brute force through a frozen canyon under orbital fire. The last signal we got was from Darren himself, his voice low, ragged but clear. "We're inside. No going back now." And then, silence. 20 minutes later, every alien system across the globe froze. Their skyships fell from orbit, smashing into mountains, oceans, deserts. Their drones turned off mid-air, crashing like metal rain. Terraformers stopped humming. Atmospheric pulses ceased. The world held its breath. And then came the message. A simple phrase, broadcast in every language. "Earth remains." We all knew what it meant. They were gone, not defeated in battle, not negotiated into peace. Broken by the one thing they never understood. United States. Not our weapons, not our numbers, but our will. You can kill a man, burn his house, crush his bones. But you cannot conquer a soul that refuses to surrender. We spent the next year rebuilding. The scars will never fade. Cities gone, names forgotten, generations lost. But in every rebuilt street, every newborn cry, every sunrise over shattered skylines, we remember. The cost was blood, fire, grief. But Earth stands, and if they ever return, we'll remind them again. This is our world. And we doctor, not kneel. On Brannick's bridge, silence reigned as the humans watched the impossible unfold. Every Zaan ship, every known asset around Tel Aviv, destroyed in under 6 minutes. 6 minutes. Harvin's voice was a rasp. I've never seen weapons like that. Not even the Union's top brass could punch through a Zaan flagship like that. Brannick nodded slowly, eyes wide. That's because those weapons were built for a different war, a war Earth thought it might one day fight alone. Jonra looked up, tears in her eyes. Are they here for us? Before anyone could answer, the comms flared again. Refugee ship SC-113, you are now under Terran protection. Prepare for docking. We are taking survivors aboard. Harvin blinked. Taking us aboard? That means... Brannick finished the sentence for him, the weight of it sinking into his chest. They're not retreating. They're staying. When the docking sequence completed, Brannick stepped into the airlock with Harvin and Jonra behind him. The bay beyond was sleek and grim, steel on steel, no ornamentation, no soft lighting like Union ships favored. The crew that met them wore dark exo-armor and faceplates etched with Terran emblems, Earth continents cradled by war-born wings. Not a single one looked younger than 40. Hardened, scarred, and silent. One removed her helmet and stepped forward. Pale eyes, grey streaks in her hair, a face carved by decisions no one should have to make. "Commander Brannick," she said. "I'm Captain Maera of the TSV Deliverance. You and your people are safe. We've been watching for years, waiting." Brannick narrowed his eyes. Waiting for what? Her answer sent a chill through them all. For the Union to betray its own. The words hit like a hammer. Maera motioned them deeper into the ship. "We were part of a breakaway command decades ago. When Earth joined the Union, not everyone believed we should hand over our sovereignty. So some of us disappeared. The retribution protocols were activated. We watched. We listened. We saw the Union become weak, cowardly, political. We saw how they turned a blind eye when colonies like Tel Aviv screamed for help. They don't care about humans anymore. Only the image of peace." Jonra stepped forward. "Then why come now? Why not save us earlier?" Maera stopped walking, turned slowly. Her voice was low, filled with pain. "Because we weren't sure humanity was worth saving anymore. But you sent 117 calls. You kept fighting, even when no one came. That's why we're here. Because you reminded us who we used to be." Brannick couldn't speak. His throat was tight, and his heart heavier than it had ever felt. Maera gestured toward the forward deck. "Come, you need to see what comes next." As they approached the command center, holographic displays lit up with dozens of red marks, Zaan targets, more than just Tel Aviv. The Admiral's voice echoed again. "Today we make a statement. Humanity is not dead, and no one, not the Zaan, not the Union, not anyone, harms our own and walks away." Brannick looked at the stars beyond the viewport and realized with grim clarity. This wasn't rescue. It was retribution. The Deliverance rumbled beneath their feet as the fleet prepared for its next jump. In the forward command deck, Brannick stood among war-hardened officers and soldiers who barely acknowledged him. It wasn't out of disrespect. They simply had no time for anything but war. Every movement was precise, every breath calculated. On the display, red markers flickered across a star map. Zaan supply depots, forward command posts, slave hubs, all scheduled for elimination. Admiral Kerrick's voice came through again, this time more personal, directed solely at the officers of the fleet, and Brannick, who had been granted temporary clearance. "We have evidence the Union stood down when the Zaan attacked Tel Aviv. They received the distress calls. They acknowledged them, then filed them away under non-critical." He paused. The Zaan didn't act alone. They were given room to slaughter civilians. Humanity was collateral to maintain galactic stability. The deck went still. Brannick clenched his jaw. He had suspected it. Who hadn't? But hearing it confirmed, laid out cold and without pretense, cut deeper than any wound. They'd been abandoned by their own supposed allies. Harvin muttered under his breath, "Cowards! All of them!" Genre said nothing. Her hands trembled as she stared at the image of a mining camp on Grid 7, where her little brother had died. Captain Maera turned to them, her tone steel-hard. "You want to help? Then listen. We're hitting a Zaan control ship in 2 hours. It's coordinating the occupation of 3 human colonies. If we take it out, they scatter." Brannick stepped forward. "What do you need from us?" Her eyes met his, assessing, measuring. "We need someone who's been on the ground, someone who knows the terrain. You used to run ore routes through Sector 14, right?" He nodded. "Good. Then you're leading one of the boarding teams." Genre gasped. "He's not a soldier." Brannick didn't flinch. "I am now." The mission brief was brutal. The Zaan control ship, Vaktal Urek, was orbiting a dead moon, cloaked in sensor noise and guarded by 2 escort destroyers. The Terrans had no intention of a prolonged siege. They were going to punch a hole through the escorts with shock jump torpedoes, ram a breacher ship into the hull, and storm it from the inside. Old-school brutality, Brannick's boarding team was a mix of Terran black ops and refugee volunteers, people with nothing left to lose. They wore scavenged armor, patched-together weapons, and fury in their eyes. As the breacher ship launched, Brannick's stomach twisted. The stars streaked past, and for a moment he thought of Earth, not as it was, but as it had been in history books. Blue, stubborn, dangerous. They hit the control ship like a thunderbolt. Explosives blew through the outer hull, and they poured into the breach. Smoke, screams, the sickening scent of alien blood. The Zaan weren't ready for humans like these. Brannick fought with rage he didn't know he had. Not trained, not graceful, but ruthless. Every swing of his shock blade carried the weight of every friend he'd buried, every cry unanswered, every betrayal by the Union. When they reached the command node, the Zaan overseer shrieked a high-pitched call for reinforcement. Brannick silenced it with a shot to the throat. The node fell. The ship's systems flickered, communications lost, systems crashing. The Zaan fleet began to scatter, disoriented, confused. Without command, they were nothing. Brannick stood in the silence of the smoking command node, staring at the ruins around him. Blood on his face, hands trembling, but alive. The mission was a success, but something in him had changed. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were becoming something else, something the galaxy hadn't seen in centuries, the humans who didn't ask for permission. The return to the Deliverance was quiet. No cheers, no backslaps or celebration, just bloodied boots on metal floors and eyes that didn't blink enough. Brannick stepped off the breacher ship, his armor scorched, his face smudged with Zarn gore and carbon residue. He dropped his helmet at the docking bay's edge and walked straight toward the decontamination corridor, but Captain Maera was already there, waiting. "You did well," she said. "I killed 3 of them, maybe 4. He muttered, voice flat. "I don't even remember how." "You'll remember when the nightmares come," she replied without flinching. "But for now, we've won a round. You gave our people something they haven't had in a long time. Vengeance." Brannick's jaw tightened. "Vengeance doesn't bring back the kids on Tel Aviv." "No," Maera said, turning to lead him down the corridor, "but it stops more from dying." In the strategy room, the entire Terran fleet was mobilizing. Holographic projections showed Zarn formations retreating from human sectors, fragmenting without their central command ship. But the Terran AI, nicknamed Argus, picked up something even worse, a movement within the Union Senate. "They've passed a resolution declaring the Retribution Fleet rogue," said Carrick, his voice steady through the comlink. "They're labeling us extremists, terrorists. They're preparing to send Union peacekeeping forces to intercept us if we don't stand down immediately." Harvin slammed his fist into the wall. "We save their damn citizens, destroy the ones who murdered them, and they call us terrorists?" Brannick looked at the hologram. Earth was glowing red on the political map, not from Zarn invasion, but from Union sanction. Earth's leaders had tried to distance themselves from the fleet to keep their hands clean. The cowards wanted deniability, even while their own people bled in the dirt. Genre finally spoke. "They're afraid of us, not the Zarn. Us." Maera nodded slowly. "They should be." Kerrick's voice echoed again through the deck. "Let them come." This fleet was not built for diplomacy. It was built for survival. If the Union wants to protect monsters, then we will remind them what humanity becomes when left to die. Brannick turned to Maera. "What's the next target?" She raised an eyebrow. "You're staying in?" He didn't hesitate. Until the last Zarn ship is ash and the Union apologizes with blood. A flicker of a smile crossed her face. "Good, because our next mission isn't a strike. It's a message." Kerrick laid it out in cold, simple words. "We're going to the Union Corps. We're going to transmit every image of Teller 5, every intercepted order, every corpse they ignored. And then we will give them one chance to step aside. 1. If they try to stop us, we burn through them like we burned through the Zarn." The room fell silent. Brannick stepped forward and looked at the central display, Earth and the glittering Union worlds around it. He felt nothing. Not hope, not nostalgia. Only clarity. They didn't want humanity to rise, so now they would kneel. The Union's core was a fortress cloaked in protocol, glittering with the pretense of peace. Orbiting the jewel world of Virelia Prime, the heart of galactic politics pulsed with arrogance and luxury. Ambassadors in silk suits debated border disputes over imported wine, while colonies like Teller 5 burned in silence. The Terran Retribution Fleet emerged from subspace like a scar tearing across the stars. There were no preambles, no warning transmissions, no official contact, just the sudden, deafening presence of over 30 Terran warships parked in high orbit around the most secure system in the galaxy. Panic erupted across Union command frequencies. Civilian transports scrambled. Diplomatic cruisers ran. The Union Navy, caught flat-footed and bloated by years of bureaucratic rot, stumbled to respond. On board the Deliverance, Admiral Kerrick stood tall in front of the comm array. Behind him, Brannick, Maera, and Janra watched as he activated the fleet-wide transmission, broadcasting directly into every screen and channel across the Union core. "This is Admiral Kerrick of the Solarian Retribution Fleet," he began, voice unshaken. "We are the answer to the silence that followed your betrayal." He paused just long enough for the weight to settle. "We have intercepted your orders. We have the records of your denial. Tel Aviv begged for help. You filed the request under non-critical. We retrieved the footage. Children torn apart. Civilians executed. A city turned to ash. And you sat in this shining palace and did nothing." Across the bridge, screens lit up with live feeds. Footage of the Zarn massacre played for all to see, raw, unfiltered, and damning. Corpses lined mining tunnels, survivors crawling through rubble, a girl holding her dead brother in a cratered schoolyard. The silence from Union Command was deafening. Kerrick continued, his voice now a blade. "We're not here to negotiate. We're not here to restore trust. We're here to deliver judgment. You let humanity rot. You sold our blood for peace. Now you answer for it." The feed cut. In seconds, Union command ships scrambled fighters, shouting demands for the Retribution fleet to stand down. Brannick watched them flicker across the tactical display, clean, bright, and predictable. "They think we're bluffing," Maera said bitterly. "They're used to playing with threats that fear consequences." Brannick replied, "We're not threats. We're the consequence." Then the Union Navy made its move. A fleet of 70 sleek vessels advanced from Virelia's moons, deploying ECMs, attempting to jam Terran signals. They fired a warning shot, a calculated display meant to assert authority without bloodshed. The Deliverance didn't flinch. Admiral Kerrick gave the order. No hesitation. "Target all warships with primary batteries. Fire at will." The Retribution fleet roared to life. It wasn't a battle. It was a lesson. Union ships, built for post-war posture and ceremonial patrols, collapsed under the first Terran volleys. Kinetic slugs tore through hulls. EMP blasts shut down shield arrays. Boarding pods drilled into capital ships like invasive roots. Brannick joined the boarding party again, this time storming the bridge of the USN Harbinger, a ship that had once served as a peace envoy to Earth. He remembered it docking in orbit above his colony a decade ago, all smiles and promises. Now its corridors were filled with the screams of officers who had never expected to fight for real. He found the commanding officer, a polished, soft-spoken bureaucrat hiding behind a stasis shield. Brannick shot through it with a Terran disruptor. Point blank. "You watched us die," he growled. "Now you watch your own arrogance burn." Within 30 minutes, the Union fleet was shattered. The Retribution ships took position over Virelia Prime. Admiral Kerrick broadcast one last message. Earth will no longer be ruled by cowards. The age of apology is over. We are not seeking peace. We are enforcing consequence. Brannick looked out over the once proud Union capital, its sky now filled with the dark wings of Terran vengeance. He didn't feel joy. He didn't feel justice. But for the first time in a long time, he felt power. The streets of Virelia Prime were eerily quiet beneath the looming shadows of Terran warships. The capital of the Union, once alive with the hum of trade delegations and the clinking of crystal at rooftop galas, now trembled in silence. Government buildings sat dark. Transport lanes were locked down. Every broadcast screen across the surface still looped the footage from Tel Aviv. Brannick stood on the surface now, boots planted on the polished blackstone of the Union Council Plaza. Behind him, squads of Terran Marines fanned out through the city, disarming resistance, securing key infrastructure. He wasn't here for diplomacy. That much had been made clear the moment their ships punched through the orbital defenses. Captain Maera stood beside him, rifle slung over her shoulder, eyes hard. Council leaders are in the Grand Chamber, still under guard, but they've offered no surrender. She said, "They're trying to stall. Hope we'll pull back." Brannick didn't answer immediately. His gaze drifted to the towering statues lining the plaza, hollow-faced depictions of Union ideals, unity, progress, peace. All lies. He walked forward without a word. The Grand Chamber loomed ahead, gleaming spires and crystal domes cracked from shock tremors. Terran squads had already breached the outer levels, and a path had been cleared right up to the central floor where the Union's highest-ranking councillors had barricaded themselves. The chamber doors hissed open. Inside, a semicircle of Union leaders stood in thin lines of defiance, cloaked in regalia, faces pale, voices hollow with forced civility. "Commander Brannick of the rogue Terran fleet," one of them said, a tall, silver-haired diplomat with a voice like ice. "You've committed an act of war." Brannick stepped forward, helmet in one hand, face bare. "You abandoned your people to die. Don't lecture me about war." Another councillor, a shriveled woman in violet robes, snapped, "This is madness. You think slaughtering Union forces and parading your vengeance makes you a hero?" Brannick leaned closer, voice low but deadly. "I don't want to be your hero. I want to be your reminder." Silence. Then Maera tossed a datapad onto the marble floor in front of them. "Every intercepted order, every redacted file, proof you let the Zarn attack human colonies to preserve trade relations with their empire." The first councillor's face twisted. "We were maintaining peace in a volatile sector." "By selling us out?" Brannick snarled. "By letting the Zarn butcher our children while you debated fuel tariffs." "You are destabilizing everything we've built!" The woman shrieked. "The Union is fragile!" "Then it was never worth saving," Maera said coldly. Brannick took a slow breath. "You have one option. Step down, dissolve this council, transfer authority to Terran Command, or we make an example of this entire world." They laughed. They actually laughed. "You wouldn't dare," the first one sneered. "You need legitimacy. You need allies." Brannick stared into the councillor's eyes, and for the first time let him see the hatred that burned in every survivor. "No," he said, "we don't." He turned to Maera. "Lock the exits. Evacuate civilians from a 10-block radius. We're done talking." The councillors screamed, begged, threatened, but no one listened. The Terran fleet's guns repositioned silently above the capital. The ground trembled. And then the Grand Chamber of the Union exploded into fire and rubble, erased by a single orbital strike. No ceremony, no trial, just consequence. Hours later, as smoke curled into the sky and emergency beacons blared across Virelia's surface, Brannick stood on the edge of the city and watched the chaos unfold. Was it the right call? Janra asked softly from beside him. He didn't answer for a long time. Finally, he said, "I don't know what's right anymore. I just know what can't be allowed to happen again." Behind them, the Terran flag rose over the Union capital, black and silver, no stars, no olive branches. Only a clenched fist. Word of Virelia's fall didn't just echo across Union space, it shattered it. The footage of the Grand Chamber's destruction went viral within hours. Smuggled by frightened aides, hacked by sympathizers, leaked by bitter Union soldiers who'd watched their superiors do nothing while humans died. Some worlds called it terrorism, others called it justice, but everyone called it something. And suddenly, the silence around Earth broke. The old homeworld had kept its head down during the war. Politicians had issued empty statements. News feeds had spun the Zarn massacre as a tragic breakdown in communication. But now, with Terran ships standing over the Union's most powerful city and the Retribution fleet refusing to leave, Earth's government had no choice. The call came in 3 days later, a live transmission from Earth High Command. It wasn't a plea for forgiveness. It was a warning. Brannick stood on the Deliverance's war deck as the feed played. A grey-faced general read from a pre-approved script. "You have compromised interstellar peace. You are no longer acting in defense of humanity, but as insurgents. Earth does not recognize your authority, and we will not support this crusade." Maera didn't even flinch. "There it is." Kerrick walked into the chamber slowly, hands behind his back, eyes calm. "Expected it," he said. "They're scared we'll make them irrelevant, and they're right." Harvin barked a bitter laugh from his station. "So Earth turns on us too? What now? They gonna call us traitors while we fight the war they ignored?" Brannick stepped forward, fists clenched. "We send a message, not to their leaders, to their people." Genre nodded quietly. "Show them what their government let happen. Show them what we've done." So they did. Across Earth, people watched in horror and awe as their sanitized version of history was torn away in a torrent of brutal reality. And many of them stood up. Small outposts in the Mars colonies refused to relay Earth's orders. Civilian freighters began defecting. Independent AIs, some long considered obsolete, began activating old security protocols buried in Terran hardware. And then came the most unexpected turn. A rogue Earth admiral, long thought exiled after political disgrace, sent a message to Kerrick. "Terra isn't ruled by its politicians. It's ruled by the blood in our bones. I'm with you." Within hours, 3 cruisers jumped into Retribution-controlled space, declaring allegiance not to Earth, but to humanity. Kerrick stood silent for a long moment as the fleet data updated. Then he looked at Brannick. "This isn't just revenge anymore. This is rebellion." Brannick exhaled, something cold and heavy rising inside him. "Then we finish what we started." New orders were given. The Zarn homeworld was still untouched. Their empire, fractured but alive, retreated deeper into uncharted sectors. The Union still held dozens of systems, though without central command their grip was loosening. But if the galaxy thought the Retribution fleet would stop with one victory, they were wrong. Kerrick summoned every captain, every survivor, and every volunteer who had joined since Teller 5. His voice rang through every ship in the fleet. "The galaxy tried to erase us. Now it will remember us. This is the rise of Terran wrath, not for conquest, not for peace, but for memory." Brannick stood among them, armor still scorched from Virelia, hands still stained from the bridge of the Harbinger. He'd never asked for this war, but now he would see it through, to the bitter end. The fleet gathered at the edge of known space, just beyond the void where star maps turned into guesses and warnings. The Zarn homeworld lay beyond this darkness, hidden deep within a gravitational storm no Union ship had ever dared to cross. The Terrans didn't hesitate. They called the operation Ashfall. For weeks, scouts probed the edge of the storm. Drones disappeared without a trace. One frigate made it through, only to return with half its hull sheared off, and its AI screaming in static. The Zarn had protected their nest well. But they hadn't protected it against humans who had nothing left to lose. Brannick stood in the forward hangar of the Deliverance, checking his weapon, armor sealed and scarred. Around him, veterans and recruits alike readied for the final plunge. Their eyes didn't hold hope, only fire. Kerrick addressed them all via live feed. "This is it, the heart of the beast. You've all lost something, families, homes, peace. We don't fight for medals. We fight to make sure they remember what they did when they thought no one would come." The fleet engaged. Terran warships plunged into the gravitational storm, their hulls groaning, their systems pushed to the brink. The Zaan emerged in force, horrific bioengineered horrors twisted for war, but they were not facing the Union this time. They were facing Earth's rage, distilled and armed to the teeth. The battle lasted 19 hours. Terran cruisers were torn apart. Dropships fell like burning meteors. Boarding crews fought in suffocating corridors where oxygen ran out in minutes, and the screams never stopped. Brannick's squad breached the outer dome of the Zaan control hive. Inside, they found more than just leaders. They found breeding pits, prisoners, human children, survivors who hadn't been killed, just used. He lost 2 men pulling them out. One died holding back a wave of Zaan hatchlings with only a fusion cutter and a prayer. They reached the Zaan prime core, an organic, pulsing mass of psychic control. Kerrick didn't hesitate. "Burn it," he ordered, and they did. EMP torpedoes, incinerators, a full orbital payload unleashed in one savage blow. The Zaan homeworld cracked open like a dying star. The survivors barely made it out before the storm swallowed the wreckage. The Deliverance limped out last, scarred but victorious. It was over. The Zaan were shattered. The Union, fractured beyond repair, couldn't rally the support to retaliate. Earth, now facing its own uprising of people tired of politics and hungry for truth, fell into silence. Brannick stood once more on the observation deck as the stars stretched endlessly before them. Behind him, silence. Ahead, a galaxy reshaped by the violence no one had wanted, but everyone had invited. Genre stood beside him. "Do you think we're the good guys now?" Brannick didn't answer. Because it didn't matter anymore. They weren't heroes, they were memory, and the galaxy would never forget them again.